Before he became an Olympic gold medalist, an NBA champion, or a United States Senator, Bill Bradley was just a scrawny kid shooting hoops at the local Y.
I began playing basketball in a YMCA in Crystal City, Missouri. Every Saturday morning at 9 o'clock, fourth graders would come to the local high school gym where we would play, and that was my first competition.
Bradley always stood head and shoulders above his teammates, but height alone wasn't enough to send him on the path to basketball stardom.
The YMCA gave me the opportunity to learn the game in a structured setting with coaches who cared about you.
Today, Bill Bradley's legendary career is immortalized here at the Basketball Hall of Fame in Springfield, Massachusetts. The museum is a shrine to America's most popular team sport. And the best seat in the house belongs to the man who started it all, the most influential YMCA instructor in history, James Naismith. In 1891, Naismith was a first-year phys ed teacher at the YMCA Training College in Springfield. Though the Y would go on to build more than 20 colleges, Springfield was its flagship, the only school in the country devoted to physical education instruction. Its teachers included such pioneering sports figures as college football legends Amos Alonzo Stagg and Newt Rockne.
A huge proportion of college coaches and physical educators in the early part of the 20th century were graduates of Springfield College. I think you can really say that it had a huge impact on American education.
That winter, Naismith was assigned an especially tough class, a rough-and-tumble group of young men bored with the school's usual slate of indoor activities, tumbling, leapfrog, and a game called Drop the Handkerchief. Naismith's boss, athletic director Luther Gulick, challenged him to come up with a new game, one that would capture the students' interest and keep them fit through the long winter months.
The original purpose of the game was to give unruly students something to do that was organized that they could put their energies into and therefore would be less unruly.
But Gulick also had a higher purpose in mind, a sport that would reinforce the YMCA's values, producing better young men, not just better athletes.
He didn't want a game that was solitary, like individual exercise. He didn't want a game that was too rough and tumble, that would encourage violent tendencies in people. He wanted a game that would promote teamwork and would promote what he felt was Christian character.
Gulick's views were shaped by a new movement that had only recently taken hold at the Y. It was called muscular Christianity, the belief that both a strong mind and a strong body were necessary for spiritual growth. Muscular Christianity dramatically transformed the Y, placing recreational exercise at the heart of the organization's mission. It even inspired Luther Gulick to design the Y's now familiar logo, an inverted red triangle symbolizing a balance between mind, body, and spirit. In the winter of 1891, Gulick challenged James Naismith to turn muscular Christianity into a new game. It took the 30-year-old Canadian a while to hit on a formula that was both spirited and safe.
And Naismith experiments with everything. He takes a little bit of soccer, a little bit of football, and he keeps putting them together, and people keep getting hurt.
Finally, he came up with something entirely new, a ball game built around passing, where tackling would be illegal, and points would be scored by tossing the ball up into a goal, which he thought would be a wooden box.
He's going around and asking the janitors and maintenance men, and one of them pulls out a peach basket. And Naismith says, well, that'll do, I guess.
Naismith took the peach basket and hung it from the overhead running track in the gym, 10 feet above the floor. He took another and nailed it up across the way. In mid-December 1891, two 9-man teams squared off against each other in history's first basketball game. The game lasted 30 minutes. The final score, 1-0. The YMCA's new game was an instant sensation. Naismith students became basketball evangelists, taking the game home with them on Christmas break, and eventually to other YMCAs when they graduated. Naismith himself only played twice. He was apparently too rough and fouled too often to be any good. He would, however, go on to become the first basketball coach at the University of Kansas. To this day, the inventor of basketball remains the only coach in the school's history with a losing record. Naismith's creation has come a long way since 1891. Backboards were added early on to keep spectators from swiping the ball. Then came foul shots, dribbling, and eventually the two-handed reverse jam. Yet while basketball may have quickly shed the gentlemanly qualities its inventor hoped to encourage, it's never lost its uniquely American spirit.
Balance between individuality and collective responsibility is really what the essence of America is in a fundamental sense. Baseball is a derivation of cricket, football is a derivation of rugby, but basketball is the true American game.
Basketball wasn't the only sport to be invented at the YMCA. In 1895, Naismith's friend William Morgan, a director at the Holyoke, Massachusetts Y, came up with a less strenuous game, a way of getting older, more sedentary men out onto the court. Morgan named his new sport mintonette, since it was based on a game brought from India called minton. But that didn't last long.
Mintonette sounded far too ladylike for the manly folk at the YMCA, so the name was changed.
Today it's known by a more familiar name, volleyball.
Sports to the YMCA were meant to be active. That's why they invented basketball and volleyball, not so people could watch these sports from a distance while they drank beer and ate chips, but instead so that people could participate in those sports and learn the virtues of sportsmanship.
Along with inventing new sports, the YMCA also introduced revolutionary ways of teaching old ones. In 1909, George Corson, an instructor at the Detroit Y, offered the country's first group swimming lessons. Since then, millions of Americans have benefited from Corson's method, including triathlete Heidi Musser. Heidi learned to swim as a young girl here at the Leaning Tower Y in Niles, Illinois. In 1997, she met Mark Landeck, a personal trainer at the Y, who agreed to help get her in shape for competition. Less than a year later, in her hometown of Chicago, Heidi completed a sprint distance triathlon in just over 2 hours. It was a performance made all the more remarkable by the fact that Heidi has been blind since birth. In training and in races, her coach swims beside her, calling out directions. They ride in tandem, and when they run, they hold an elastic band between them. In September 1999, Heidi made history at the World Triathlon Championships in Montreal, where she became the first blind athlete to compete in an international triathlon on the same course as sighted athletes. By making play a serious pursuit, the YMCA helped change the way America and the world stayed fit. But in the first half of the 20th century, the terror of war would twice turn the YMCA's attention from the athletic field to the battlefield, where the Y would bring relief in ways large and small to millions of American servicemen. America's Haven, the YMCA at 150, will continue in a moment.